The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Commander Jacob Reed stepped to the podium. Every species represented, the towering Krell, the crystalline Vithara, the aquatic Morvan, watched as he placed a single data chip on the council table. 48 hours, he said, his voice carrying across the vast hall. You have 48 hours to withdraw from the Outer Rim colonies and release every human civilian you've taken. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The Krell ambassador's laugh echoed like grinding stone. And if we refuse, human? Reed's expression didn't change. Then you'll discover why Earth stopped answering your questions about our military 3 years ago. Before anyone could respond, he turned and walked out, leaving the data chip blinking red on the table. A countdown timer visible to every delegation. If you're enjoying this story from HFY Core, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will redefine galactic warfare forever. The galaxy had 48 hours to make a choice. They chose wrong. Now let's move forward into the catastrophe they unleashed. 47 hours remained when Ambassador Krell Thane held his press conference across every major system. He stood before a gathered crowd of reporters, his chitinous plates gleaming under harsh lights, mandibles clicking in what his species considered amusement. The human Reed speaks of consequences, he began, and the chamber rippled with derisive laughter. Let me be clear, humanity controls exactly 17 colony worlds. The confluence spans 4,000 systems. Their entire military fleet numbers fewer than 300 vessels. We possess over 12,000 warships. He gestured to a holographic display showing Earth's known defensive positions. They threaten us with, what? Their quaint notion of honor? Their primitive attachment to individual lives? More laughter cascaded through the room. The Outer Rim settlements violated Confluence sovereignty. The humans living there are being processed according to our laws. If Earth wishes to contest this, they are welcome to try. Commander Jacob Reed watched the broadcast from the bridge of the UNSC Perseverance, a warship that officially didn't exist. Around him, holographic displays showed fleet positions the Confluence believed were complete. They weren't. Sir, his tactical officer called out. 46 hours, 32 minutes. Krell forces are reinforcing the Dantrius blockade. They're not withdrawing. Reed nodded slowly. Beside him stood Counselor Savara, a Vithara diplomat, whose bioluminescent skin patterns flickered with what he'd learned meant deep concern. Her species saw in ultraviolet spectrums, processed information in quantum layers. She'd been assigned to humanity as an observer 2 years ago, back when the Confluence still pretended diplomacy mattered. Commander Reed, she said, her voice carrying that peculiar harmonic quality of her kind. The Krell truly believe you are bluffing. Their strategic computers calculate a 97.3% probability that human threats are political theater. I know, Reed replied quietly. Then why not show them, reveal even a fraction of your capabilities before? Because we gave our word, Reed interrupted, not unkindly. We said 48 hours. We meant 48 hours. Every civilian in those colonies is watching this, Sivara. Every human in Confluence custody is counting minutes. We tell them help is coming, then it comes. Not early, not late. Exactly when we said. Sivara's skin patterns shifted to confused amber. This is irrational. Tactical advantage suggests. Tactical advantage means nothing if your own people don't trust you to keep your word, Reed said. He pulled up a file on his personal display. Casualty estimates, updated hourly. 300,000 human civilians currently held in Confluence processing centers. Such a clinical word for what the intelligence reports actually described. His hands tightened on the railing. They're torturing them, Savara. Not for information, for efficiency studies. Seeing how much labor they can extract before biological failure. Your Confluence considers humans resource units. I am aware, Savara said softly, her patterns dimming to sorrowful violet. My protest was noted and ignored. Yeah, Reed's jaw set. 46 hours. Across the bridge, his communications officer straightened. Sir, incoming transmission. It's from the colonies. Dantrius III. The holographic display shifted, showing a young woman, maybe 25, her face bruised, broadcasting from what looked like a storage container. Behind her, dozens of other humans huddled together. Children, elderly, families torn from their homes 3 months ago, when the confluence decided the Outer Rim needed proper administration. This is Sarah Chen, the woman said, her voice shaking but determined. Dantrius III, Civilian Detention Center 7. We heard Commander Reed's message. We heard the Council's response. She swallowed hard. We know you're coming. We know it's not easy. But we trust you. The feed cut out. Reed's tactical officer cursed softly. They jammed the signal, sir. Confluence security. Location? Reed asked. Logged. Dantrius III, Northern Continent, Facility Delta 7. We've got her. Reed nodded. He pulled up the master operational file. Autumn Frost, they'd called it. Months of planning, years of preparation, decades of being underestimated. The confluence saw 300 human warships. They didn't see the 13,000 automated defense platforms. They didn't see the 78 stealth frigates. They didn't see the civilian merchant fleet that could reconfigure into missile boats in under 6 hours. Most of all, they didn't see the jump gate network humanity had been building in dead systems for 3 years. The network that would let human forces appear anywhere in confluence space with zero warning. All ships, Reed said quietly into his command channel. Final system checks. We go in 44 hours, 19 minutes, not a second sooner. Confirmed, came the responses across 200 channels. Savara watched him, her quantum processing mind trying to reconcile human behavior with logical frameworks. Commander, if you lose, humanity faces extinction. The confluence will not accept this challenge lightly. I know, Reed said. Then why risk everything for 300,000 civilians? Your species numbers 12 billion. Strategically, you could negotiate. Compromise. Reed turned to face her fully. Because, Counselor, if we won't risk everything for 300,000 of our own, we don't deserve the 12 billion. Because the moment we start calculating which humans are worth saving and which aren't, we become exactly what they think we are. Just another species playing the numbers game. He gestured to the countdown. 44 hours and 17 minutes. Then they learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. Across confluence space, in 1,000 systems, human civilian ships began subtle course corrections. Merchant vessels altered their routes. Scientific stations powered up equipment that hadn't been used in years. And, in Earth's lunar shipyards, massive bay doors slowly, silently began to open. The Krell watched their scopes and saw nothing unusual. That was the point. 43 hours remained when Reed received the final intelligence update. The confluence wasn't just refusing to withdraw. They were accelerating their processing schedule. They decided to call humanity's bluff by making an example. Execution orders for 2,000 civilians, scheduled for broadcast in 12 hours. Reed read the report twice. Then he opened a secure channel to Fleet Admiral Chen. No relation to the young woman in the detention center, but the coincidence felt heavy nonetheless. Admiral, Reed said quietly, permission to advance timeline. There was a long pause. Negative, Commander. We gave our word. 48 hours means 48 hours. We move early. We're no better than them. Sir, they're going to execute. I know what they're going to do, Jacob. The Admiral's voice was hard as iron. And when we arrive exactly when we said we would, and those facilities are empty because we pulled those people out, the galaxy will learn something about human precision. We don't just keep our promises to our allies, son. We keep them to our enemies too. because the promise wasn't for them, it was for every human watching. Hold the line. Yes, sir. Reed closed the channel and looked at Savara, who had heard everything. Your species is either magnificent or insane, she said. I have not yet determined which. Ask me in 42 hours, Reed replied. Then alarms began screaming across every display. The Confluence was mobilizing their full fleet. The Confluence First Armada moved like a storm made of steel and spite. 1,200 warships, each one larger than anything in Earth's official naval registry, burning hard toward human defensive positions in the Threshold sector. Admiral Krell Thane commanded from the dreadnought Sovereign Mandate, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction as tactical displays showed the expected human response. They are forming defensive clusters around their colony worlds, his tactical officer reported. Classic perimeter strategy. Predictable. Krell Thane studied the displays. 300 human ships moving into textbook defensive formations. Brave, certainly. Futile, absolutely. Begin the demonstration, he ordered. I want their flagship isolated and destroyed. A clean execution. Let them see how outmatched they truly are. On the Perseverance, Reed watched the Confluence fleet approach. They're taking the bait, his tactical officer said, coming in exactly as the simulations predicted. Because they think they're hunting us, Reed replied. He pulled up a different display, one showing civilian evacuation schedules. Across 7 colony worlds, human transport ships were lifting off under the cover of defensive fleet maneuvers. The Confluence saw warships holding ground. They didn't see the millions of civilians being quietly, systematically pulled out of the combat zone. Savara's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to alarmed crimson. Commander, their fleet composition suggests they intend to make an example of you specifically. The Sovereign Mandate is targeting the Perseverance. I know. You cannot survive a direct engagement with a dreadnought of that classification. I don't need to survive it, Reed said calmly. I need to delay it for... He checked the countdown. 37 hours and 43 minutes. The Vathara counselor's patterns flickered through a dozen colors, expressing emotions her species didn't have names for. This is madness. Reed smiled thinly. Madness looks a lot like strategy when you're seeing the whole board. The Confluence First Armada opened fire at maximum range, a demonstration of power. Lance beams cutting across empty space to bracket human positions. The Perseverance shuddered as near misses superheated its ablative armor. Return fire, Reed ordered. Pattern Delta 3. Make it look desperate. Human railguns spat metal at relativistic speeds, impressive by any standard, but the Confluence point defense systems swatted most aside. A few impacts registered on Krell's shields, negligible damage, exactly as planned. Sir, his communications officer called. Receiving reports from the colonies. Dantrius 3 Facility Delta 7 just increased security. They've moved up the execution schedule. 6 hours instead of 12. Reed's hands clenched, but his voice stayed level. Acknowledge. No change to our timeline. Savara made a sound like breaking crystals. Commander, those are your people. Which is why we stick to the plan. Reed cut her off, not harshly but firmly. Because the plan saves all of them, not just some. What Savara couldn't see, what the Confluence couldn't detect, was the stealth frigate UNSC Silent Mercy, already in orbit around Dantrius 3. Its crew of 40 special operations personnel had been on site for 72 hours, positioned precisely for this contingency. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb led the team, a former rescue specialist who'd pulled civilians out of mining disasters, shipwrecks, and collapsing habitats across 20 systems. This was different. This was deliberate imprisonment, deliberate cruelty. He watched Facility Delta 7 through quantum imaging scanners, mapping every guard post, every sensor array, every single structural weakness. 6 hours, he murmured to his team. They moved up the timeline. His second-in-command, Chief Petty Officer Amanda Brooks checked her weapons loadout. Means we move too? Negative, Webb said, checking his own countdown timer, synchronized to the exact second with reads aboard the Perseverance. We move in 37 hours, 19 minutes, not before. Sir, respectfully, those civilians are going to be terrified for 37 more hours, Webb finished. And then they're going to see us come through those walls exactly when we said we would. When humans say they're coming, Chief, humans come. That message matters more than our comfort or theirs. Brooks nodded slowly. It's going to be a long 37 hours. Yes, it is. Back in space, the Confluence fleet pressed their advantage. The Sovereign Mandate launched strike craft, hundreds of automated fighters swarming toward human positions. Reed's destroyer screen responded, point defense systems lighting up space with defensive fire. Lost the Reliant, Tactical reported. Catastrophic damage to the Montgomery, she's pulling back. Acknowledged, all ships maintain formation Delta 3. Krell Thane watched the human fleet struggle and felt vindicated. Pathetic. They cannot even mount a credible defense. Continue the assault. I want their flagship crippled within the hour. But his tactical officer's patterns showed confusion. Admiral, their formation is degrading, but too slowly. The damage to casualty ratio is inefficient. Explain. They are losing ships, yes, but consistently in ways that preserve crew survival. Planned retreats. The officer's patterns shifted to uncertain yellow. It is almost as if they are delaying. Krell Thane's mandibles stilled. Delaying. For what? He pulled up strategic displays, looking beyond the immediate engagement. The human colonies behind their fleet were evacuating? No, impossible. His ships would have detected massive civilian movements. Except they hadn't been looking for massive movements. They'd been focused on the human warships, on the pride of destroying Earth's navy in a single decisive engagement. Scan the colony worlds, he ordered. All of them. Deep scans. The reports came back minutes later. Civilian populations down by 40% on average. Transport ships moving through jump gates that shouldn't exist. Defensive positions that were actually elaborate sensor decoys. They've been evacuating for hours, his tactical officer said. Patterns now alarmed crimson. Admiral, the humans never intended to hold these colonies. They intended to empty them. Krell Thane felt something he hadn't experienced in years of conquest. Uncertainty. Where are they going? Unknown. Their jump gates are using quantum encryption we cannot break. The Admiral studied the human fleet, still fighting, still dying, but in a way that made no strategic sense unless time was the real objective. They said 48 hours, he murmured. 36 hours remain. They are buying time for evacuation. Should we pursue the transports? No. Krell Thane's tactical mind recalculated. We destroy their fleet first. Without military protection, the civilians are helpless regardless. Continue the assault. Maximum intensity. I want the Perseverance destroyed now. Reed felt the Sovereign Mandate's lance beams rake across his ship's shields. The bridge shuddered, damage reports flooding in. Hull breach on Deck 7. Reactor 3 showing fluctuations. Reroute power from non-essential systems, Reed ordered. Maintain heading. Sir, if we stay on this course, they'll tear us apart. 36 hours, 14 minutes, Reed said quietly. We hold. Savara watched him, her quantum mind processing probabilities. You are using your fleet as a sacrifice. Not a sacrifice, Reed corrected. A trade. Their attention for our civilians' freedom. 36 hours of pain for permanent safety. And if your fleet is destroyed before the deadline? Reed met her multifaceted eyes. Then the fleet behind the fleet finishes the job. Behind the... Savara's patterns blazed confused white. There is no second fleet. We have scanned all of human space. You've scanned all the space we let you scan, Reed said simply. Before she could respond, alarms shrieked. The Sovereign Mandate had launched its main weapon, a plasma lance capable of cutting a destroyer in half. Reed watched the targeting solution lock on the Perseverance. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Brace for impact." The lance beam hit like a falling star, and the universe turned white. When Reed's vision cleared, half his bridge displays were dark. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Damage report. Forward shields collapsed, armor holding barely. Casualties across multiple decks. "We've lost." His tactical officer paused, recalculating. "Sir, we've lost offensive capability. We can still maneuver, but we can't fight back." Perfect, Reed thought, but didn't say. The Confluence wanted a helpless target to parade before the galaxy. Let them think they'd won. All ships, he broadcast on the fleet channel. Pattern Omega-3. Look beaten, look broken, and buy every second you can. Across the engagement zone, human ships began controlled retreats. Venting atmosphere, jettisoning debris, all the signatures of a fleet in full collapse. Krell Thane watched his displays and allowed himself satisfaction. The humans are broken. Pursue, but slowly. Let them broadcast their defeat. Let every system in Confluence space watch Earth's humiliation. His tactical officer hesitated. "Admiral, should we not finish them quickly? Every hour they survive is another hour of human shame," Krell Thane interrupted. "No, we will crush them slowly, methodically. We will destroy them exactly 47 hours and 59 minutes after their arrogant ultimatum. 1 minute before their deadline. Let them die, knowing their word meant nothing." What Krell Thane couldn't know, couldn't see, was the Silent Mercy and 77 other stealth ships like it, positioned at every human detention facility across Confluence space. Couldn't detect the automated defense platforms coming online in the vast dark between stars. Couldn't imagine the civilian merchant fleet refitting from cargo haulers into missile platforms, or the jump gates connecting dead systems into a network that would make distance irrelevant. The Confluence saw a beaten human fleet barely surviving. They didn't see the trap closing around their entire civilization. 35 hours remained when Sarah Chen, in her cell on Dantrius 3, watched guards drag away the first group marked for execution. She pressed her face against the container wall and whispered to the darkness. Commander Reed said 48 hours. I believe him. Around her, 300,000 other humans held the same faith. They had 35 hours to be right. The execution chamber on Dantrius 3 was designed for efficiency. 20 humans at a time, neural disruptors causing instantaneous death, bodies processed for organic reclamation. The Confluence wasted nothing, not even in their cruelties. Sarah Chen wasn't in the first group. She watched through the gaps in her container as guards in environmental suits, Krell enforcers who found the human-compatible atmosphere uncomfortable, led 20 terrified people down the corridor. An old man, maybe 70, 2 teenagers holding hands, a woman who looked like she might be pregnant. They'll come, Sarah whispered to the person next to her, a middle-aged engineer named David Park. Commander Reed said 48 hours. It's been 13 hours, David replied, his voice hollow. And they're already killing us. Then we survive 13 more. Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. We survive, because that's what humans do. 5,000 kilometers above them, Lieutenant Commander Webb watched through quantum scopes as the first execution was carried out. His jaw clenched so hard, his teeth ached. Chief Brooks stood beside him, her own face a mask of controlled fury. 35 hours, 42 minutes, she said quietly. I can count, Chief. Just making sure, sir, because if I'm counting right, that means we sit here for 35 more hours while they prove exactly why we're going to destroy every single one of these facilities, Webb finished. We can pull them out now and save most of them. Or we wait, follow the plan, and save all of them. Every human, every facility, every colony, simultaneously. So the confluence can't retaliate, can't take hostages, can't make last-second executions. Brooks nodded slowly. Precision. And when we hit so hard, they never even consider taking human prisoners again. Back in space, the Confluence fleet was conducting what Krell called the demonstration. His ships had surrounded the remnants of Reed's fleet, 300 human vessels, now reduced to barely 200 operational ships. They could have finished the battle in an hour. Instead, Krell ordered measured attacks, designed to wound rather than destroy. Let them suffer, he told his command staff. Let every human watching see their fleet die slowly. Break their morale before we break their worlds. The Sovereign Mandate's lance batteries fired in sequence, each beam calculated to cripple rather than kill. The destroyer UNSC Defiant lost its engines, tumbling helplessly. The cruiser Yamato vented atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. The Perseverance herself was operating on backup power, shields at 11%, half her crew in emergency shelters. Reed stood on his damaged bridge, watching tactical displays that flickered and sparked. Savara had insisted on staying, against all protocols, against all sense. Because as she'd said with her patterns flickering determined gold, if I am to report on humanity's last stand, I will witness it directly. Not much of a stand, Reed's tactical officer muttered, then caught himself. Sir, I didn't mean... It's fine, Lieutenant. Reed checked his countdown. 34 hours, 18 minutes. How's the civilian evacuation? 87% complete. The last transports are loading now from Threshold 7 and New Perth. Casualties? Minimal. 3 transports damaged by debris. No losses. The confluence is so focused on us they haven't even scanned the inner colonies. Reed allowed himself the ghost of a smile. Then we're doing our job. A proximity alarm shrieked. The Sovereign Mandate was closing to point-blank range, a final humiliation, to destroy the human flagship with its main batteries at spitting distance. All remaining ships, Reed broadcast, fall back, scatter formation. You've done your job, now survive. Sir, his communications officer protested, if we scatter, you're alone. That's an order, Lieutenant. The human fleet began breaking formation, ships peeling away in seemingly panicked flight. Krell watched with satisfaction. They abandoned their commander. How predictable. Humans talk about honor, but in the end, survival instinct prevails. But his tactical officer was studying the retreat patterns with growing unease. Admiral, they are scattering into very specific vectors, almost as if they have predetermined rally points. There is no pattern to panic. Respectfully, Admiral, I believe there is always pattern to human behavior. They are... She paused, patterns flickering alarmed. Admiral, our long-range scouts just reported anomalies. Massive power signatures activating in 17 uninhabited systems between here and Confluence core space. Krell turned sharply. What kind of power signatures? Unknown. But they are large. Very large. Reed watched his fleet scatter successfully, each ship heading exactly where it needed to go. Savara, he said quietly, you asked me why we risked everything for 300,000 civilians. Want to know the real reason? The Vithara counselor's patterns showed confused amber. I assumed you had explained it already. I explained the moral reason. The strategic reason is simpler. He pulled up a display showing the Confluence fleet's positions, overextended, scattered across 7 systems, focused entirely on pursuit. Because when you make them commit everything to stopping us from saving our people, they don't notice us positioning to destroy theirs. Savara's patterns blazed shocked white as understanding hit. The civilian evacuations were not defensive. They were bait. Partially, but also necessary. We weren't lying when we said we'd pull our people out. Reed gestured to the countdown. 33 hours, 48 minutes. That's when the Confluence discovers that humanity's real fleet isn't the 300 warships they've been fighting. It's the infrastructure we built while they weren't looking. What infrastructure? The kind that makes distance irrelevant and numbers meaningless. Before Savara could respond, a new transmission came through. This one from Earth itself. Fleet Admiral Chen appeared on the holographic display, her expression carved from stone. "All human vessels," she said, her voice carrying across every channel. "Civilian evacuation is complete. 93% of our people are now safe in systems the Confluence cannot reach. Well done." She paused. "Now comes the hard part. All ships are to continue delaying actions for 33 more hours. I know what I'm asking. I know the cost. But in 33 hours, the galaxy learns that humanity doesn't make idle threats. We make promises. Hold the line. Chen out." The transmission ended. Reed looked around his damaged bridge. Officers bleeding from minor injuries. Systems sparking. The smell of burned insulation in the air. "You heard the Admiral," he said quietly. 33 hours. Who wants to live forever anyway? A few exhausted laughs answered him. On Dantries 3, the executions continued. 20 humans every hour. Sarah Chen kept count, kept whispering the countdown to anyone who would listen. 33 hours. He said 48 hours. We're at 33. David Park had stopped responding. The man next to him, a young teacher named Michael Torres, whispered back. "They've killed almost 300 people. Which means 299,700 of us are still alive," Sarah countered. "And Commander Reed is coming." "How do you know?" "Because he said so, and I've never heard of a human military officer breaking a promise to civilians. Not once, not ever." She pressed her forehead against the cold metal wall. 33 hours. Lieutenant Commander Webb heard her through his listening devices. The Silent Mercy's quantum sensors could detect even whispered conversations inside the facility. He wanted to tell her she was right, wanted to promise that rescue was coming. Instead, he checked his weapons for the 40th time and watched the countdown tick forward. 33 hours, 12 minutes. "Sir," one of his team members said, "we could take this facility now. 40 operators, minimal guards. We could pull them out." "And the other 77 facilities across Confluence space?" Webb asked. "The ones with heavier security? The ones that would execute everyone the moment they got word of a rescue attempt?" He shook his head. "We wait. We trust the plan. We hit all of them simultaneously, or we guarantee a massacre." "It's already a massacre, sir." "No," Webb said firmly. "A massacre is what we're preventing. This is the price of precision. And we'll pay it, because the alternative is worse." The Sovereign Mandate fired again, and another human ship died. The destroyer Princeton broke apart in a cascade of explosions. Her crew of 400 lost in seconds. Reed watched the casualties mount. 2,000 dead now, 5,000 wounded, dozens of ships crippled or destroyed. All according to plan. All necessary. All unforgivable if this didn't work. "Sir," his tactical officer said, voice tight with suppressed emotion. "Captain Martinez, of the Princeton. He broadcast a message before they lost containment." "Play it." Martinez's face appeared on the display, calm despite the inferno around him. "For anyone listening, we bought you 4 more hours. Use them. Make them count. Humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity doesn't forget. And humanity keeps its promises. Martinez out." The bridge fell silent. "Log it," Reed said quietly. "Add it to the archive. When this is over, I want every name, every sacrifice remembered." 32 hours remained. Krell Thane watched the Princeton's debris field expand, and felt nothing. Satisfaction, perhaps. Vindication, certainly. But also a nagging doubt his tactical computers couldn't quantify. The humans were losing, yes. Dying, absolutely. But they were dying in patterns, in sequences, in ways that felt almost choreographed. "How long until their fleet is completely destroyed?" he asked. "At current rates, approximately 31 hours. Exactly 1 hour before their deadline." The mathematics felt too clean, too precise. Krell Thane had fought campaigns across 100 systems, conquered species that outnumbered the confluence 10 to 1. He knew desperation when he saw it. And this wasn't desperation. This was discipline. "Increase the intensity of attacks," he ordered. "I want them destroyed in 20 hours, not 31. Admiral, our ships are already at 80% combat effectiveness. If we push harder, do it. I want this finished before they can spring whatever trap they think they've set." Because Krell Thane was certain now, absolutely certain, that the humans had a plan. He just couldn't see it yet. Neither could anyone else in the confluence. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships, or their weapons, or their determination. It was their willingness to endure absolutely anything to protect their own. 31 hours, 47 minutes remaining. Sarah Chen heard them coming for her group. 20 humans, herself included. Time to die. She stood on shaking legs, helping an elderly woman to her feet. 31 hours, she whispered. "He's coming in 31 hours. "Child," the woman said gently, "he's not coming." "Yes," Sarah said with absolute certainty, "he is." They walked toward the execution chamber together, and Sarah started counting seconds. The execution chamber door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Sarah Chen walked through it, her heart hammering but her spine straight. The room was clinical. White walls, harsh lighting, 20 restraint fields aligned in 2 rows. Beyond a transparent barrier, Krell guards monitored equipment with the detached interest of workers processing inventory. Because that's all we are to them, Sarah thought. Inventory. "Assume positions," a translated voice commanded. The Krell language sounded like grinding gravel, but the translator chips made it understandable. Almost polite, as though efficient murder could be courteous if conducted properly. Sarah stepped toward her assigned restraint field. Beside her, the elderly woman, Mrs. Chen, no relation but the coincidence felt heavy, trembled badly. Sarah took her hand, squeezed it. 30 hours, Sarah whispered. "Hold on for 30 hours. "I don't think I have 30 hours, dear." "Then I'll hold on for both of us." The restraint field activated, electromagnetic force locking them in place. Sarah's legs went numb, her arms pinned to her sides. She could move her head, nothing else. Across the room, the neural disruptor began charging with a rising whine. 5,000 kilometers above, Lieutenant Commander Webb watched it happen. His hands gripped the edge of his console so hard, the metal creaked. 30 hours, 14 minutes, he said, voice flat as hammered steel. Chief Brooks checked her weapon loadout for the 73rd time. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "This is bullshit." "Agreed. We could save them right now. We could save these 20 and doom the other 299,980 when the other facilities execute everyone in response." Webb forced his hands to release the console. "We wait." "How do you live with that, sir?" "I don't plan to. I plan to make them pay for it instead." On the Perseverance, Reed received the report through encrypted channels. Silent Mercy reporting execution in progress. Delta 7 facility, Dantrius 3. He read it twice, then deleted it. No point in dwelling on what couldn't be changed. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the sovereign mandate is accelerating attack patterns. They're trying to finish us faster." "Let them try. All ships, evasive pattern Omega 7. We hold for 30 hours. "Sir, at this intensity, we won't last 30 hours. Mathematical certainty." Reed smiled grimly. "Then we'll just have to be less than mathematically certain. Route all non-essential power to engines." "If," We can't fight. We can at least run. Sivara's bioluminescent patterns had stabilized into resigned violet. You are buying time with lives, Commander. Your own people's lives. Yes. For what? Even if your mysterious reinforcements exist, what can they accomplish that your current fleet cannot? Reed pulled up a restricted file, one he probably shouldn't show her, one that would get him court-martialed under different circumstances. Sivara, I'm going to tell you something, and then I'm going to ask you to make a choice. Her patterns shifted to cautious amber. What choice? Whether to stay aboard the Perseverance for the next 30 hours, or take an escape pod to the nearest confluence vessel. He met her multifaceted eyes. Because in 30 hours, every assumption your species has made about humanity gets proven catastrophically wrong. And I genuinely don't know if you want to witness that from inside the storm or outside it. You are offering me escape? I'm offering you context. He activated the file. Holographic displays bloomed across the bridge. Jump gate positions, fleet staging areas, weapons platforms, strategic deployments. All the infrastructure humanity had built in the darkness, while the confluence congratulated themselves on their superiority. Sivara's patterns blazed through a dozen colors as her quantum mind processed the data. This is impossible. The energy requirements alone were solved 2 years ago. Fusion breakthrough, classified. We've been stockpiling antimatter and building gates in dead systems while you were watching our colony worlds. But the resources, the industrial capacity. Humanity has 12 billion people, Counselor, and every single one of them has been working toward this moment since the confluence started taking our civilians. Reed gestured to the countdown. 30 hours from now, we don't just rescue our people. We demonstrate exactly why you don't back humans into corners. Sivara processed for long seconds. If I leave now, if I report this, the confluence mobilizes everything, tries to stop us, and probably succeeds. Reed nodded. Which is why I'm trusting you not to. Because despite everything, I believe you're one of the few confluence officials who actually gives a damn about minimizing casualties. You are asking me to betray my government. I'm asking you to witness history, then decide which side you ought to have been on when the accounts are written. Sivara's patterns cycled through complex emotional sequences her species rarely experienced. Finally, they settled into determined gold. I will stay, not because I support your violence, Commander, but because someone should witness what we drove you to become. Fair enough. The Perseverance shuddered as another lance strike tore through weakened shields. Damage reports cascaded across failing displays. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, Reactor 2 offline, life support at 60%. All hands, this is the captain, Reed broadcast shipwide. If anyone wants to evacuate, you have my authorization. Take the escape pods, signal the confluence. You'll be treated as prisoners of war according to their own conventions. No one moved. Sir, his tactical officer said, with respect, we're not going anywhere. Why not? Because you said we'd hold for 30 hours, sir, and we're not about to make you a liar. Reed felt something crack in his chest. Pride, grief, honor, all mixed together. Then let's make these 30 hours count. On Dantrius 3, the neural disruptor reached full charge. Sarah Chen closed her eyes, counted heartbeats, and thought about Commander Reed standing somewhere in the darkness, watching the same countdown she was. 29 hours, 58 minutes, she whispered. The Krell operator initiated the sequence, and the universe disappeared in white light and sudden nothing. Sarah woke up, screaming. No, wait. She woke up. She wasn't supposed to wake up. Neural disruptors caused instant death, complete cessation of brain function. You didn't wake up from them. Except she had. Her chest hurt. Her head felt like someone had taken a hammer to it. The restraint field was gone. She was on the floor, and Mrs. Chen was beside her, also breathing, also alive. Around them, 19 other humans were slowly, painfully regaining consciousness. What? Sarah tried to speak, coughed, tried again. What happened? Through the transparent barrier, she saw Krell guards in chaos. Alarms, shrieking, emergency lights flashing. And on every display, a single message repeated in translated text. Neural disruptor safety override activated. Lethal discharge prevented. System locked by remote authorization code, UNSC Prometheus. Sarah started laughing. It hurt her chest, made her head pound worse, but she couldn't stop. He did it, she gasped. Commander Reed actually hacked their execution equipment. That's impossible, Mrs. Chen said. The Krell systems are quantum encrypted. Apparently not quantum enough. Sarah pulled herself to sitting, looking around at the confused, terrified, gloriously alive people around her. He's coming. I told you he was coming, and he just made sure we'd be alive when he got here. 5,000 kilometers above, Lieutenant Commander Webb grinned like a wolf. Did it work? His technical specialist, Petty Officer Jennifer Walsh, pulled her hands from the quantum hacking interface. All 78 facilities simultaneously disabled. Every neural disruptor on this planet just became a very expensive paperweight. How long until they realize what happened? They already know something's wrong. Understanding what and how? That'll take them hours, maybe days. Their security systems can't even conceive of remote hacking through quantum encrypted channels. Because quantum encryption is supposedly unbreakable. Supposedly. Walsh smiled. But humanity's been breaking supposedly unbreakable things since we figured out fire was useful. Webb activated his tactical channel. All teams, Alpha status confirmed. Targets are alive, and systems are compromised. We proceed as planned. 29 hours, 37 minutes. 77 other stealth ships across confluent space acknowledged. Aboard the Sovereign Mandate, Krell Thane received the first confused reports. What do you mean the execution systems failed? Not failed, Admiral. Overridden. Remotely. From an external source. That is technologically impossible. Yes, Admiral. And yet, Krell Thane felt the first real stirring of fear. How many facilities are affected? All of them. Every detention center, every processing facility, every installation holding human prisoners. Their execution equipment has been disabled. The Admiral's mandibles ground together as realization struck. They did not warn us because they were bluffing. They warned us because they were buying time to infiltrate our systems. Sir, if they can access our detention facilities, what else can they access? Krell Thane didn't answer. He was too busy pulling up security reports from across confluent space. Power fluctuations in uninhabited systems. Unidentified structures appearing on long-range scans. Energy signatures that matched no known technology. How long until the human deadline, he asked quietly. 29 hours, 22 minutes. Recall all fleets, immediately. Full defensive posture around core worlds. Sir, we have the human fleet cornered here. If we do not pull back, we will discover too late that their visible fleet was never their real fleet. Krell Thane studied the tactical displays with new understanding. They have been playing us from the beginning. The warnings, the deadline, the desperate defense, all of it was theater to keep us focused here, while they positioned their real assets elsewhere. What assets, Admiral? Our scans show exactly what they wanted us to see. Krell Thane pulled up the human countdown. 29 hours. Begin emergency evacuation of all non-essential personnel from detention facilities. If we cannot execute the prisoners, they become strategic liabilities. Remove them to secure locations immediately. But it was too late for that. The moment Krell Thane's recall order went out, it triggered protocols humanity had been waiting for. Across 17 star systems, the invisible became visible. Massive structures that had been operating in stealth mode suddenly powered up to full operational status. Jump gates, each one large enough to move a battleship, activated in sequence, and through them began pouring ships. Not 300 vessels, not 3,000. 13,000 automated defense platforms, cross-jumping into positions that created an interlocking kill zone across 700 light-years of space. 78 stealth frigates decloaking simultaneously around every Confluence installation holding human prisoners. 5,000 civilian merchant vessels, their cargo holds reconfigured into missile batteries, emerging from hidden staging areas. And behind them all, moving through the jump gate network with perfect precision, the actual human battle fleet. 800 ships that had never appeared on any Confluence scan because they'd been built in complete radio silence in the outer dark. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UNSC Retribution, humanity's first true dreadnought, and watched the fleet deploy. "All ships," she broadcast, "this is Admiral Chen. Operation Autumn Frost is now active. Primary objectives: retrieve all human civilians, neutralize Confluence military assets, and demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises." Remember, we offered them a choice. They chose violence. We choose precision. Execute. 13,000 voices acknowledged. Reed watched his tactical display transform as the real human fleet materialized. "Sivara," he said quietly, "you asked what we were buying time for. This is what 30 hours of pain and death purchased. The Confluence's complete and total strategic surprise." The Vithara counselor's patterns had gone completely white, the color of absolute shock. This fleet would have been detected. Our scans scanned the space we operate in, not the space between galaxies, not the dead zones, not the places where nobody thought to look, because why would humanity build anything there? Reed pulled up deployment schedules. "We've been preparing this for 3 years, Counselor. Ever since the first human civilian disappeared into a Confluence processing center, we built an entirely new doctrine of warfare." Based on what? Based on the principle that the best way to win a war is to make the enemy believe they've already won, right up until the moment you prove them catastrophically wrong. The Sovereign Mandate's proximity alarms shrieked. Krell Thane spun to his displays and saw them. 8 automated defense platforms materializing from jump gates, positioning themselves in perfect firing geometry around his flagship. Evasive? He didn't get to finish the order. The platforms didn't fire. They just sat there, weapon systems armed, but holding, waiting. A transmission came through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every Confluence command vessel simultaneously. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command. 29 hours remain on the deadline Commander Reed provided. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to retrieve our people. Every facility holding human civilians will be entered by special operations teams. You will offer no resistance. Any attempt to harm prisoners will result in the immediate destruction of the facility, and every Confluence vessel within 10 light-years. She paused, letting that sink in. "You were warned. You chose to ignore that warning. Now you face the consequence of underestimating humanity's resolve. We are taking our people home. You can accept this peacefully, or you can discover why every species that has ever tried to genocide humans has failed. 29 hours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Krell Thane looked at the 8 automated platforms surrounding his flagship, each one capable of reducing the Sovereign Mandate to component atoms. Looked at his tactical displays showing Confluence fleets cut off, surrounded, outpositioned. And for the first time in his military career, he understood what it meant to be completely, utterly, and catastrophically outplayed. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "All ships stand down. Do not engage the humans. Sir, if we coordinate a simultaneous, they have had 3 years to plan this. 3 years. Do you honestly believe they have not anticipated every response we might make? Krelthane gestured to the platforms. They are not destroying us because they do not need to. Because the moment we provoked them to violence, we proved them right about us. And now the entire galaxy is watching. On Dantrius 3, Sarah Chen heard the facility alarms change tone, heard guards shouting in confusion. Heard, very faintly, the sound of shaped charges detonating on the exterior walls. 29 hours, she whispered one more time. And through the smoke and chaos, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb and his team came through the walls like avenging angels. United Nations Space Command, Webb shouted. All civilians, stay down. We're here to take you home. Sarah looked up at him, this human soldier who'd waited in the darkness for 30 hours, who'd watched executions happen, who'd held the line because the mission demanded it, and started crying. I knew you'd come, she said. I knew Commander Reed would keep his promise. Webb helped her to her feet, his expression gentle, despite the tactical gear and weapons. Ma'am, Commander Reed would have walked through hell itself to keep his promise to you. This was just the next best thing. Around them, the facility came apart as 78 simultaneous rescue operations unfolded across confluence space. And in orbit, 13,000 automated platforms and 800 human warships held perfect position, waiting to see if the confluence would choose continued violence or reluctant peace. 28 hours, 43 minutes remained on the deadline. The extraction from Facility Delta 7 took 17 minutes. Lieutenant Commander Webb's team moved with practiced efficiency. Breaching charges on containment units, medical triage for the injured, quick march evacuation to the Silent Mercy waiting in orbit. Sarah Chen found herself hustled aboard with 300 other civilians, all of them dazed, bleeding, traumatized, but alive. Strap in, a medic told her, already moving to the next person. We're getting you out of here. Through the transport's viewports, Sarah watched Dantrius 3 fall away. Around the planet, Krell security vessels held position, but didn't fire. Couldn't fire. Every one of them had targeting locks from human platforms that had appeared from nowhere. She started laughing again, that half-hysterical relief of someone who'd been counting down to death and found life instead. Across confluence space, 77 other rescue operations unfolded in mirror precision. The processing facility on Vega Prime, where 2,000 humans had been held in industrial labor conditions. The detention center on Krell-Var itself, the confluence homeworld, where high-value prisoners were kept for political leverage. Research stations where human physiology was being studied with clinical brutality. Every single one hit simultaneously, every single human civilian extracted within 30 minutes. 0 casualties among the prisoners. 17 dead Krell guards who decided resistance was preferable to humiliation. Admiral Chen watched the operation reports flow in from the Retribution's bridge. 93% extraction complete. Remaining operations in progress. Estimated completion in 48 minutes. Confluence response? She asked. Scattered. Confused. Most facilities are surrendering without resistance. A few are attempting to fortify. But our teams are bypassing them and going straight for the civilians. Any attempts to execute prisoners? 14 facilities tried. All 14 had their power systems disabled remotely before they could complete the act. The Krell are starting to realize we've compromised their entire infrastructure. Chen nodded. Because we didn't just plan a rescue operation, we planned a demonstration. She pulled up a holographic display showing the full scope of Operation Autumn Frost. Every jump gate position, every automated platform, every ship, every weapon, every strategic asset humanity had built in 3 years of meticulous, invisible preparation. Broadcast this, she ordered. Full public release. Every news network, every diplomatic channel, every system in confluence space. Let them see exactly how thoroughly they underestimated us. The broadcast went out across 1,000 star systems. Humans watching from Earth, Mars, the colonies saw their fleet, their real fleet, for the first time. The confluence saw the infrastructure they'd failed to detect. And the rest of the galaxy, the hundreds of neutral species watching this crisis unfold, saw something that would reshape interstellar politics for generations. Humanity proving it could reach anywhere, at any time, with overwhelming force. Krell Thane watched the broadcast from the Sovereign Mandate, and felt something he'd never experienced before. Genuine existential fear. They built this in 3 years? His tactical officers' patterns showed the same dread. Under complete operational security. Admiral, our intelligence services detected nothing. Our long-range scans detected nothing. They built an entire shadow fleet while we were congratulating ourselves on containing them. How is that possible? Because they used our assumptions against us. We scanned human space, looking for military buildups. We didn't scan the void between galaxies. We didn't scan dead systems with no resources. We assumed they would build where it made strategic sense. The officers' patterns shifted to bitter understanding. They built where we would never think to look. Krell Thane pulled up casualty estimates. If humanity wanted to destroy the Confluence fleet right now, they could. The positioning was perfect. The Krell ships were scattered across 7 systems, cut off from mutual support, with human platforms holding every strategic choke point. Why haven't they fired? He asked quietly. Sir, they have us. They could destroy our entire fleet and cripple Confluence military power for a generation. So why are they just rescuing their civilians and holding position? No one had an answer. The answer came 23 minutes later, when Commander Reed's face appeared on every Confluence command channel. He looked terrible. Bloodied, burned, his uniform torn, his ship falling apart around him. But his voice was steady. This is Commander Jacob Reed, of the UNSC Perseverance. 27 hours remain on the deadline I provided 48 hours ago. I promised we would retrieve our civilians within that time frame. We have done so. 99.6% of human prisoners are now in our custody. The remaining 0.4% will be extracted within the hour. He paused, and something in his expression made every Krell officer watching go very still. I also promised consequences if you refused our terms. You chose to execute our people instead of releasing them. You chose to torture, to experiment, to treat human beings as disposable resources. You made that choice knowing our warning. So now you face the consequence. Another pause. But I'm not a murderer. Neither is Admiral Chen. Neither is humanity, despite what you apparently believe. So, here's your second and final warning. You have 27 hours to withdraw all Confluence military forces from human claimed space. All of it. Every ship, every station, every listening post. You have 27 hours to draft a formal apology to the families of the 347 humans you executed before we could stop you. And you have 27 hours to agree to a new treaty, one that guarantees the rights and sovereignty of every species in this galaxy, not just the ones powerful enough to demand them. Reed's expression hardened. If you do this, we will stand down. We will deactivate our platforms, withdraw our fleet, and return to our borders. We didn't build this armada to conquer you. We built it to protect our own. But if you refuse, if you decide that pride matters more than peace, then in 27 hours, you will discover that humanity's capacity for violence is only exceeded by our preference not to use it. The transmission ended. Krell Thane sat in silence for long moments. Around him, his command staff waited for orders. Finally, he spoke. Contact the High Council. Tell them we lost. Completely. Tell them the humans have demonstrated capabilities we cannot counter. And tell them that if we do not accept their terms, they will destroy us, and they will be morally justified in doing so. Admiral, surely we can negotiate. Negotiate what? Krell Thane gestured to the tactical displays. We are surrounded, outpositioned, outplanned. They have been 3 moves ahead of us since the beginning. The only question is whether we accept peace with humiliation or choose annihilation with pride. He turned to his communications officer. Send the message. Recommend full acceptance of human terms. On the Perseverance, Reed closed the channel and nearly collapsed. Savara caught him, her patterns blazing concerned crimson. You need medical attention, Commander. I need to stay conscious for 26 more hours, Reed corrected. How's the ship? Barely functional. Life support at 40%. We should evacuate. No. Reed pulled himself upright. We hold position. We made our stand here. We finish it here. Why? You have proven your point. You have rescued your people. Why continue this performance? Because it's not a performance, Savara. It's a promise. Reed looked at the countdown. We said 48 hours. We mean 48 hours. If we pack up early, it looks like we were bluffing and got lucky. If we hold exactly to our word, it proves we planned every second of this. Understanding flickered through Savara's patterns. You want them to fear you. I want them to trust us. Fear fades. Fear makes enemies desperate. But trust in our word. Trust that we mean exactly what we say. That builds something permanent. Reed pulled up a secure channel. Admiral Chen, this is Reed. Recommend we hold full deployment until hour 4800. Let them watch us. Let them count down with us. Let them understand that when humanity makes a promise, we keep it to the second. Chen's voice came back immediately. Agreed, Commander. All ships maintain position. We hold until the deadline. 26 hours, and counting. Across human space, people watched the broadcasts. Children saw their parents being rescued. Families saw loved ones thought lost returning home. And every human watching learned the same lesson. Their government had spent 3 years, countless resources, and unimaginable effort to bring home 300,000 civilians. Not because it was strategically optimal, because it was right. In the halls of the Galactic Council, that same body that had dismissed Reed's warning 48 hours ago, emergency sessions convened. Representatives from species that had been neutral, that had watched the confluence's expansion with worried eyes, now spoke with new courage. The humans demonstrated something. The Androthi ambassador said, her crystalline form resonating with emphasis. They demonstrated that power need not be used for domination. They could have destroyed the Confluence fleet. Instead, they rescued their own and held position. They proved that strength and restraint can coexist. The Morvan delegation, aquatic beings who communicated through bioluminescent patterns, flickered agreement. We have watched the Confluence grow for 2 centuries. We have been told resistance is futile, that their dominance is inevitable, not through conquest, through precision. Even species allied with the Confluence began quietly distancing themselves. Because humanity had demonstrated something more terrifying than weapons, they demonstrated competence, planning, the ability to execute complex multi-system operations with 0 communications leaks and perfect timing. That kind of capability, turned toward conquest, could destabilize the entire galaxy. But humanity hadn't turned it toward conquest. They'd turned it toward rescue. That made them either the galaxy's best hope for peace or its most dangerous wildcard, possibly both. Sarah Chen, now safe aboard the UNSC Sanctuary, a hospital ship that had materialized from the Jumpgate network, watched the countdown with other rescued civilians. 24 hours remained. What happens when it hits 0? Someone asked. We go home, Sarah said simply. Commander Reed promised we'd be safe within 48 hours. We are safe. Now we go home. But what about the Confluence? What if they attack again? Sarah thought about Lieutenant Commander Webb and his team, waiting 30 hours in the darkness. About Commander Reed holding position, while his ship fell apart. About the massive fleet humanity had built in secret, the infrastructure hidden in dead space, the precision of 13,000 vessels moving in perfect coordination. They won't, she said with absolute certainty. Because now they know. Now the whole galaxy knows. Humanity doesn't bluff. Humanity doesn't make empty threats. We say what we mean, and we mean what we say. She looked at the countdown, and when that timer hits 0, everyone will have learned the most important lesson about our species. What lesson? That if you back humans into a corner, if you threaten our people, if you mistake our patience for weakness, Sarah smiled grimly. We fight back so hard, so precisely, and so completely that you never make that mistake again. 23 hours remained. The Krell High Council met in emergency session. 12 species leaders, all of them representatives of the Confluence's ruling coalition. Krell Thane presented his report in person, his mandibles clicking with what his species considered profound embarrassment. They outmaneuvered us completely, he concluded. Every assumption we made about human capabilities was wrong. Every strategic assessment was flawed. They are not a minor species. They are potentially the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Because of their fleet? One counselor asked. No, because of their discipline. Krell Thane pulled up operational reports. They held perfect operational security for 3 years. 3 years. Not a single leak, not one compromised asset, not one careless communication. Do you understand what that means? It means their entire civilization kept this secret. 12 billion individuals, all working toward a single goal, and not one of them broke silence. The council chamber went quiet. That level of social cohesion is unprecedented, terrifying. No species should be capable of that. And yet they are, Krell Thane said, which brings us to their terms. We can accept peace with honor lost, or choose war with extinction likely. I recommend acceptance. You recommend we surrender to a species we outnumber 4,000 to 1? I recommend we acknowledge reality, Krell Thane replied. Numbers mean nothing if you can't bring them to bear. They control the strategic positions. They have weapons we cannot counter. They have demonstrated operational capabilities we cannot match. And most importantly, he paused, they have the initiative. They have proven they will do exactly what they promise when they promise it. That makes them predictable, trustworthy. I would rather negotiate with an enemy I can trust than an ally I cannot. The vote was unanimous. The Confluence would accept human terms. 20 hours remained when the official response came through. Admiral Chen read it carefully, then forwarded it to Reed. Commander, the Confluence accepts our terms. All forces will withdraw from human space within the deadline. They're drafting formal apologies now. They've agreed to treaty negotiations beginning next month. Reed nodded slowly. Good. Maintain position anyway. We hold until hour 48. Understood. How's the Perseverance? Still flying. Barely. I can have you evacuated. Negative, Admiral. I made a promise. I'm seeing it through. Sivara, still on the bridge, despite having multiple opportunities to leave, watched him with patterns that cycled through complex emotions. Commander Reed, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. What's that? I was assigned to observe humanity 2 years ago. My mission was to determine if your species posed a threat to Confluence stability. Her patterns shifted to a shamed violet. I reported that you were primitive, emotional, strategically incompetent. I recommended the Council ignore your diplomatic protests and continue expansion into your territories. Reed looked at her steadily. And now? Now I understand that I was observing humanity through Confluence assumptions. We assumed you thought like us, that you valued dominance over loyalty, expansion over ethics, victory over honor. We were wrong. She gestured to the displays showing the rescue operation. You built all of this not for conquest, but for retrieval. You risked your entire fleet, not for territory, but for civilians. You are not primitive, Commander Reed. You are simply playing a different game than the rest of us understood existed. What game is that? One where keeping promises matters more than winning, where protecting the weak is more important than dominating the strong, where moral authority carries more weight than military force. Savara's pattern settled into respectful gold. I will be filing a new report with my government. I suspect it will change how the Vithara and many other species view humanity going forward. Reed managed a tired smile. Just make sure they understand we're not looking for worshippers or subjects, Counselor. We just want our people safe and our word honored. The rest of the galaxy can do whatever it likes, as long as it does it without threatening humans. I believe, Commander, that the galaxy has learned that lesson rather emphatically. 18 hours remained. The time passed slowly. Human ships held position. Confluence forces withdrew with careful precision, not wanting to trigger any automated responses. Across confluence space, military commanders studied the human deployments and tried to reverse engineer the strategy. They couldn't, because the strategy wasn't based on confluence assumptions about warfare. It was based on something simpler: the absolute conviction that no human civilian would be left behind, regardless of cost. That wasn't a strategy. It was a values statement. And you couldn't counter values with tactics. When the countdown reached 1 hour, Admiral Chen opened a channel to every human ship. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. In 60 minutes, the deadline Commander Reed established expires. We have retrieved our people. We have demonstrated our capabilities. And we have proven that humanity keeps its promises, no matter the cost. She paused, her voice heavy with emotion. 3,214 of our people died buying the time for this operation. Every one of them volunteered. Every one of them knew the price. I want their names recorded, their sacrifices honored, and their families told that their loved ones saved 300,000 lives. Another pause. When this countdown reaches 0, we will have fulfilled every promise we made. The galaxy will know that when humans give their word, we keep it. That matters more than any weapon we could build. Chen, out. 60 minutes. 59. 58. The galaxy watched the countdown like a ticking bomb, not knowing whether it would end in peace or apocalypse. On the Perseverance, Reed stood on his shattered bridge and watched the seconds tick away. Savara stood beside him. His crew remained at their posts, exhausted, wounded, but steady. 10 minutes. 5, 1, 0. Nothing happened. Reed keyed the general broadcast channel one final time. This is Commander Jacob Reed. 48 hours ago, I gave the Confluence a warning and a deadline. Both have now expired. Our civilians are safe. Our promise is kept. As of this moment, Operation Autumn Frost is concluded. All human forces begin withdrawal to designated coordinates. We're going home. Across 7 star systems, 13,000 automated platforms deactivated. 800 warships began coordinated jumps back to human space. 78 stealth frigates decloaked one final time, then vanished. The massive demonstration of force simply left. The Confluence fleet remained, intact and unharmed, watching in stunned disbelief as humanity withdrew exactly as promised. Krell Thane sat in his command chair and allowed himself a long, slow breath. They actually did it. They kept their word to the second. Admiral, his tactical officer said, should we pursue? And prove them right to mistrust us? No, we let them go. We draft our apologies. We negotiate our treaty. And we thank whatever gods we believe in that humanity values honor more than vengeance. The sovereign mandate held position as the last human vessel jumped away. 48 hours and 0 seconds after Commander Reed's warning, the war was over. Humanity had won, not by destroying their enemy, but by proving they'd do exactly what they said they'd do, when they said they'd do it. It was the most human victory imaginable. 3 months later, Sarah Chen stood in the memorial garden on Luna, looking at the wall of names. 3,214 humans who died in Operation Autumn Frost. Captain Martinez of the Princeton, Commander Hayes of the Reliant, Lieutenant Zhao, Ensign Park, Chief Petty Officer Anderson. Names from every ship that had held the line while civilians evacuated. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to see Commander Jacob Reed, promoted to captain now, though he still looked uncomfortable with the rank. Approaching with what she'd learned was his characteristic, quiet intensity. "Ms. Chen," he said, "they told me you come here every week." "Every week since we got back," Sarah confirmed. She gestured to the wall. "These people died so I could live. Seemed like I should at least remember their names." Reed stood beside her, studying the memorial. "Martinez sent a message right before his ship was destroyed. Said they'd bought us 4 more hours, and to make them count." "Did we? We got everyone out. Every single civilian in every facility. So yeah, I'd say we made them count." Sarah turned to face him fully. "I never properly thanked you, Commander, Captain, for keeping your promise, for coming when you said you would. I gave my word, Miss Chen. That's not something humans take lightly." "I noticed." She pulled out a data chip. "I've been working on something. A full account of the detention facilities. What happened there, who did it, all the evidence. I thought maybe it should be part of the official record, for the treaty negotiations." Reed took the chip carefully. "The negotiations are already pretty tense. This could sabotage them entirely. Or it could make sure nothing like this ever happens again." Reed nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll make sure it gets to the tribunal." He pocketed the chip. "For what it's worth, Ms. Chen, you've done your duty." "Chen, you holding out in that facility, keeping people's hope alive, that mattered too. Leadership isn't just about commanding fleets. Sometimes it's about counting down 30 hours in a cell and believing help is coming." "How could I not believe? You said 48 hours. I just had to trust you meant it." "We always mean it," Reed said simply. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Sarah asked the question that had been bothering her. "What happens now? The Confluence accepted the treaty, but do they actually mean it? Or are they just waiting for us to let our guard down?" Reed considered that. "Honestly, I think they're terrified. Not of our weapons. They can build bigger weapons. They're terrified of our competence, of our ability to plan, to coordinate, to execute complex operations without leaks or failures. That kind of discipline can't be countered with force. So peace through fear, peace through respect. They fear what we can do. But more importantly, they respect that we do what we say. That makes us predictable, trustworthy. You can build stable relationships on that foundation." Sarah looked back at the memorial wall. "And these people, what do we tell their families?" "The truth. That they died proving humanity keeps its promises. That's not a small thing, Miss Chen. In a galaxy where most species value power over principles, we demonstrated something different. We showed that honor isn't just a nice idea, it's a strategic advantage." Footsteps approached again. This time, Counselor Savara, her bioluminescent pattern cycling through respectful gold. She'd requested permission to attend the memorial dedication, the first Vethara to officially visit Luna since the crisis. "Captain Reed, Miss Chen," she inclined her head. "I hope I am not intruding." "Not at all, Counselor," Reed said. "Come to pay respects?" "Come to bear witness," Savara corrected. "And to deliver a message from the Vethara Council. We have withdrawn from the Confluence Alliance." We will be pursuing independent diplomatic relations with humanity going forward. Reed's eyebrows rose. That's significant. The confluence is not pleased, but my people have decided that we would rather align with a species that keeps promises than one that breaks them. Savara's patterns shifted to solemn violet. We were wrong about humanity, Captain. We measured you by confluence standards and found you wanting. We did not realize you were playing by entirely different rules. We're not playing at all, Counselor. We're just trying to protect our own and keep our word. That's not strategy. That's just how we've always operated. Which is precisely why you are so dangerous, Savara said, and so valuable. The galaxy needs species who value integrity over advantage. She gestured to the memorial. We will remember them, and we will honor their sacrifice by ensuring the confluence never repeats its mistakes. Sarah watched this exchange with growing understanding. It's spreading, isn't it? Not just the Vithara. Other species are reconsidering their alliances. 17 species have formally protested confluence policies in the last month, Savara confirmed. 8 have withdrawn from the coalition entirely. The Krell High Council is in crisis. They built their power on the assumption that resistance was futile. Humanity proved them wrong. We didn't set out to destabilize the galaxy, Reed said carefully. No. You set out to rescue your civilians. The destabilization was simply a side effect of demonstrating that the confluence could be opposed successfully. Savara's patterns flickered with something that might have been amusement. Sometimes, the most profound changes come from the simplest principles, applied with absolute conviction. A soft chime indicated the memorial ceremony was beginning. People gathered. Families of the fallen, fleet personnel, government officials. Admiral Chen approached the podium, her expression serious but proud. We gather to honor 3,214 humans who gave their lives in Operation Autumn Frost, she began. They died buying time for a rescue operation that saved 300,000 civilians. They died proving that humanity keeps its promises no matter the cost. They died defending a principle that to some species might seem quaint or inefficient, that every human life matters, that no one gets left behind, and that our word is our bond. She paused, letting that settle. The galaxy is still learning what those principles mean. They're learning that humanity doesn't make idle threats. And when we say we'll do something, we do it, exactly when we say we will, exactly how we say we will. That predictability, that trustworthiness, is now humanity's most powerful diplomatic tool. Chen gestured to the memorial wall. These names represent more than casualties. They represent a value statement. They tell the galaxy who we are and what we stand for. And because of their sacrifice, 300,000 humans came home. Because of their sacrifice, the confluence learned that humanity cannot be intimidated. Because of their sacrifice, the galaxy is reevaluating what power really means. The crowd was silent, hundreds of people absorbing the weight of those words. So let us honor these 3,214, not with revenge or bitterness, but with commitment. Commitment to the principles they died defending. Commitment to being a species that keeps promises. Commitment to proving, every single day, that honor and strength can coexist. Chen's voice strengthened. The confluence tried to make us choose between our values and our survival. These people proved that was a false choice. They proved we could hold both, and in doing so, they changed galactic politics forever. She stepped back from the podium as the names began scrolling on the memorial wall. Each one illuminated for 5 seconds, enough time to read, to acknowledge, to remember. Sarah found herself crying silently as the names rolled past. Beside her, Reed stood at attention, his jaw tight with emotion. Savara's patterns had shifted to mourning violet, the Vithara equivalent of tears. When the last name faded, Admiral Chen spoke one final time. To those who gave everything, Your promise is kept. Your people are home. Your sacrifice mattered. We will remember. We will remember, the crowd echoed. The ceremony ended. People dispersed slowly, some stopping to touch the memorial wall, some simply standing in respectful silence. Sarah noticed a young girl, maybe 8 years old, placing flowers at the base of the wall. "My dad," the girl said when she saw Sarah watching. "Lieutenant Chen. No relation to me, but I like to think there is. Mom says he was on the Reliant." Sarah knelt beside her. "I'm Sarah Chen. Also no relation, but I was one of the civilians your dad helped rescue." The girl's eyes widened. "Really? He bought time for people like me to escape. I'm alive because of him." The girl processed that, then asked the kind of direct question only children ask. Was he scared? Sarah thought about the reports she'd read, the combat logs, the final messages. Probably. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway, because it matters. Mom says he was a hero. Your mom is right. Sarah stood, offering her hand. The girl took it, and together they looked at the wall of names. All of them were heroes. And you know what? So were the 300,000 people who held on, who believed help was coming, who trusted that humanity keeps its promises. Captain Reed approached, his expression gentler than Sarah had ever seen it. "The girl's right. Your dad was a hero, kid. He sent a message right before the end. Want to know what it said?" The girl nodded. "He said they'd bought us 4 more hours, and to make them count. So we did. We rescued everyone, every single person, because that's what your dad and everyone on that wall fought for, making sure humanity keeps its promises." The girl thought about that. "I'm going to keep promises too, like Dad did." "That's the spirit," Reed said quietly. Later, as the memorial garden emptied, Sarah found herself walking with Reed and Savara toward the transit station. The Vithara counselor's patterns had stabilized into contemplative amber. "I have been thinking," Savara said, "about what makes a species truly powerful. The confluence measures power in ships and territories. The Vithara measure it in knowledge and technology. But humanity, you measure it in something else entirely." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "Trust. Specifically, the trust your own people have in your institutions and leadership. That's what enabled Operation Autumn Frost. 12 billion humans keeping perfect operational security, because they trusted their government to do the right thing." Savara's patterns flickered. "That level of social cohesion is rarer than any technology. More valuable than any weapon." Reed nodded. "My great-grandfather used to say that the moment your people stop believing you'll keep your word, you've already lost, even if you win every battle afterward. The Confluence forgot that. We didn't. And now the galaxy is reorganizing around that forgotten principle," Savara said. "Species are asking themselves, would our government sacrifice 3,000 lives to save 300,000 civilians? Would our leaders hold to a deadline, even when early action would be strategically simpler?" Most cannot answer yes. They reached the transit station. Sarah turned to face both of them. "So what happens next? The Confluence accepted the treaty, but what about enforcement? What about species that might test humanity's resolve again?" Reed smiled grimly. "We keep our automated defense platforms. We keep our jump gate network. We keep our fleet. But more importantly, we keep our word. Every single time, without exception. That consistency matters more than any weapon." "We become the galaxy's moral center?" Sarah asked skeptically. "We become a species people can predict and trust," Reed corrected. "That's not about morality. It's about reliability. If you know humanity will always do exactly what we say, exactly when we say it, you can build stable relationships around that. Trust enables cooperation. Cooperation prevents wars." Savara's patterns shifted to understanding gold. "You are not seeking dominance. You are establishing credibility." "Exactly." The transit car arrived. As they prepared to board, Sarah had one more question. Captain Reed, if you could go back to that moment in the council chamber, knowing everything you know now, would you still give that 48-hour warning? Reed didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Because the warning wasn't for them, Miss Jen. It was for us. It was our promise to every human watching that their government would do exactly what it said, when it said it would. That promise, that trust, that's worth more than any tactical advantage. Even if it costs 3,000 lives? Those 3,000 volunteered knowing the mission. They believed in the principle enough to die for it. Reed's expression hardened. We honor them by making sure their sacrifice meant something. By being the species they died proving we could be. The transit car departed, carrying them toward different destinations. Sarah watched the memorial garden recede through the viewport. Those 3,000 names still illuminated against Luna's dark surface. Humanity had revealed its cosmic fleet, had demonstrated capabilities the galaxy didn't know existed, had proven that a species could be simultaneously vulnerable and unstoppable, if they valued the right things. But most importantly, humanity had kept a promise. In a galaxy where power usually trumped principles, that was revolutionary. 6 months later, the Galactic Council met to ratify the Treaty of Luna, named after the moon where the memorial stood. The treaty established new protocols for civilian protection, banned the kind of processing centers the Confluence had operated, and created an independent tribunal to investigate war crimes. The Krell delegation signed reluctantly, their mandibles clicking with barely suppressed humiliation. The Vethara delegation signed, with their patterns flickering hopeful gold, and dozens of smaller species, emboldened by humanity's example, signed with something like relief. Reed attended as part of the human delegation, watching as centuries of Confluence dominance formally ended. Beside him, Admiral Chen murmured, "Think they'll actually honor it?" "They'll honor it because we demonstrated we can enforce it," Reed replied. "But more than that, because we prove there's an alternative to the old power dynamics. Cooperation over domination. Principles over expediency. They're not signing because we forced them. They're signing because we showed them a better way." "You're an optimist, Captain." "I'm a realist. Optimism is just realism about human potential." The treaty was ratified. The council session ended. And across the galaxy, species that had spent centuries under Confluence dominance began quietly, carefully, rebuilding their sovereignty. On Earth, in schools and training academies, a new generation of humans learned about Operation Autumn Frost. They learned the names on the memorial wall. They learned about the 48-hour deadline and humanity's refusal to move either earlier or later than promised. But most importantly, they learned the principle. When you give your word, you keep it, no matter what. That lesson would shape humanity's role in galactic politics for centuries to come. In Facility Delta 7 on Dantrius 3, now a museum dedicated to remembering what happened, Sarah Chen gave tours to school groups. She showed them the cells where humans were held, the execution chamber where the neural disruptors had been disabled, the walls Lieutenant Commander Webb's team had breached. Not a story of victory or vengeance, but a story about promises kept. About a commander who said 48 hours and meant exactly 48 hours. About 3,000 people who bought time with their lives so 300,000 could go home. "Remember this," she would tell each group. "Not because we should glorify war or celebrate violence, but because we should understand what our values cost. 3,000 humans died, proving that our word means something, that every human life matters, that we don't abandon our own." The children would nod, trying to understand. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the automated defense platforms humanity had built remained on standby. The Jumpgate network stayed active. The fleet held position. Not as a threat, as a promise. If you come for humans, if you threaten our people, If you mistake our patience for weakness, we will respond, not with rage or chaos, but with precision, with overwhelming force, applied at exactly the promised moment, with the kind of discipline that comes from absolute conviction in our principles. The galaxy had learned that lesson. 300,000 rescued civilians could testify to it. 3,000 names on a memorial wall proved it. And one 48-hour deadline had cemented it into galactic consciousness forever. Humanity had revealed its cosmic fleet. Until then, no one had seen the innovation coming. But once revealed, once demonstrated, once proven beyond any doubt, that innovation changed everything. Not the ships, not the weapons, not the technology. The innovation was simpler, meaning what you say and saying what you mean. Proving that honor and power can coexist. In a galaxy that had forgotten those principles, humanity became the species that remembered them. And that made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story from HFY Core, make sure to like, share, and leave a comment about what moment hit hardest for you. Was it Commander Reed's warning? The rescue operations? Sarah Chen's countdown in the detention center? Let us know, and subscribe for more stories about humanity proving why underestimating us is always a mistake. The cosmos is vast, but human determination is vaster, and we're just getting started. Human innovation isn't always about technology. Sometimes, it's about remembering what matters and refusing to compromise on it, no matter what the galaxy throws at us. Remember, 48 hours. We said it, we meant it, we did it.